Hello and welcome to Dino, only on RiotRadio.ca and all of our other affiliations. My name is Eldin Atkin, and today we are talking about Canadian dinosaurs. Now, in the past, if you've watched any of my shows, be it any affiliation of Dino, I've done dinosaurs found in Canada before, but I have a list. And this list is 37 dinosaurs. Now, we're not doing all 37 today because that is way too much. We're going to cover 3 dinosaurs per day until I'm done. By per day, I mean weekly because I can't do this daily. I have a job to do. But I got a lot of cool ones to start with today. Now, on this list, you might see dinosaurs or hear dinosaurs that you say, hey, wait a minute, that's been found somewhere else as well. Yes, that is true. This list was taken from the website, if I can see it, the Canadian Encyclopedia, and it's also taken from the NHM UK Discover Dino Directory by country. So I may be wrong. I've heard some things about over 100 dinosaur species being discovered. I've heard less. I have 37 taken from these two websites. With that being said, though, there's some really cool ones, some really awesome ones, and ones that I just really enjoy, and I think you will hopefully enjoy listening to or hearing about. That being said, we have our first one. Now, our first one is Acrocanthosaurus, which means high-spined lizard. Now, this one, really cool. From the family of the Acrocanthosaurus, or something along those lines. Again, I'm 100% how to pronounce these names. I should have looked at the phonetics, but I didn't. But Acrocanthosaurus, really cool. If you ever played that game for the DS called Fossil Fighters, Acrocanthosaurus was really cool. It had like a spine and was kind of snub-nosed. Really cool dinosaur. And again, high-spined lizard, great name for it. Now, I got my sources today, and by any means, I don't mean that I'm better or am more knowledgeable than any of the sources I've taken from. This is just how I perceive it. My sources today were from the UK Directory for Dinosaurs. I watched a YouTube video by Extinct Zoo about Acrocanthosaurus. I recommend checking it out. And, of course, Wikipedia with all those other extra tabs at the bottom. So, a lot of stuff to talk about with Acrocanthosaurus. I also have some paleo art. None of the paleo art is mine. It's all been taken from online. I'll put it in the description of the video so you can check them out for yourself. Great pictures as well. And just a really cool dinosaur in general. So to start it off with, it lived in the Aptian age, or early Albian age, of the early Cretaceous. So that's about 113 million to 110 million years ago. So it wasn't a very new dinosaur by any means, but it's not an old one either. There's been older and there's newer, if that makes sense to you. So it's named by Stovall and Langston in 1950. Both are paleontologists, I hope. I looked it up, but we also have the size. So the size of Acrocanthosaurus, it's rated as the 4th largest dinosaur of its time. So it was 35 feet, or 11 meters, for those who work in meters, long, and it weighed 6 to 7 tons, which is gigantic. Like this thing, I think we have a picture of the size compared to a modern-day human. It was a big dinosaur. And again, when you have a big, meat-eating dinosaur, like T-Rex, like Spinosaurus, like Gigantosaurus, it really kind of inspires awe. When you see Jurassic Park, and you see Rexy, or the Indominus, or any of these big dinosaurs, it really makes you think, like, how could these things have existed? And Acrocanthosaurus is not out of that realm of possibilities of being like a monster in its own right. So it's classified as the 4th largest meat-eating dinosaur of the Mesozoic era, behind the Spinosaurus, Gigantosaurus, and T-Rex. Little disclaimer, Gigantosaurus could be called Giganotosaurus. I just pronounce it Gigantosaurus because it looks like Gigantosaurus to me. So it's thought to have preyed on pretty much anything it wanted. It was one of those predators that if it wanted to, it could. It was this big monster with shark teeth. Charcharodontids kind of come from the name of like shark tooth, I believe. And these things had teeth for days. Big, very scary teeth. Could easily make a meal out of anything. Another thought is, though, we found some sauropod bones, sauropods being long-necked dinosaurs like Littlefoot, with bite marks on their bones looking like Acrocanthosaurus' teeth. That being said, though, that would mean that Acrocanthosaurus was a titan killer. At its time, the two main sauropods that were around, There was a smaller sauropod in the area. I say smaller, but it was still much larger than today's like giraffes. And then a saurotitan, kind of like a basically like you know, the cusp, the upper echelon of how big these things could get. Because of how big the prey was, it's thought that it could have been a pack hunter. There's not a ton of evidence to suggest it. There is some, and there's also some that doesn't. So it's very tough to kind of 100% guess because, again, most of paleontology is speculation until we know for sure. That being said, though, could have been a pack hunter, probably wasn't, but definitely took down some huge prey. Now, the really cool thing about that is you don't really hear about big dinosaurs taking down much bigger dinosaurs. It's more reverse, right? You have a big dinosaur taking down a smaller dinosaur, or T-Rex and Triceratops evenly matched. This thing would just pick a fight with the biggest guy in the room and usually win. So it's thought that the arms, speaking of arms, which Acrocanthosaurus' arms were about as long as a modern day human's arms. Now I have longer than average arms for my body size, but picture a dinosaur, this monster, 37 or 35 feet long, with my arms attached to it. That's pretty big, or pretty kind of dinky, I guess, but also very strange to think of. And out these arms had these big claws. Now, unlike T-Rex, unlike my favorite, Carnotaurus, the arms were probably actually used for more than just kind of looks and probably reproduction. They weren't nearly large enough to help with any kind of locomotion. So they weren't helping it, walk around, none of that stuff. But they may have been used to grab. So when you have a big dinosaur with arms with big claws that could hook and pull, it would make sense if the Acrocanthosaurus would then be able to just hold on and bite. That way, the arms are doing something instead of like Carnotaurus that has these little dinky things that can't do anything. Really cool too, because again, you don't see a lot of stuff like that. You see dromaeosaurs, like velociraptors and stuff like that. Their arms do stuff, but they're also much smaller. So it's kind of a food for thought. Its name, being high-spined lizard, comes from a very large dorsal, I would call it spine or ridge, along the back of it. Not like Dimetrodon, not like Spinosaurus, but enough that you would notice it and enough to be noticed. So that's kind of where the name comes from. One dinosaur that we actually know a lot about of its brain, which is funny, it had an endocast of its brain done by computer tornography. And we know that because of the size of its brain and how we can judge how big the brain was, and because of how the skull was and how the brain was shaped, the thought is that it would have kept its head tilted at about a 25-degree angle from the neck. That way, it would kind of just sit normally. We think it's supposed. Don't quote me on that, but if you know better, I wouldn't mind. Texas is actually covered in Acrocanthosaurus footprints. There's a big migratory path, we think, where it would have followed herds of sauropods and other things like that. So tons of footprints in Texas. And here's the caveat. Very first dinosaur I'm talking about, and everywhere I looked, it said it was found in Canada, but would not tell me where. If you go to the Canadian Encyclopedia, it says it's listed in Alberta. Doesn't say where in Alberta. Doesn't say which formation. Doesn't say where it was from. It just says found in Alberta. So I know for a fact that it was found in in Texas, but that's about as far as that one goes. So that's Acrocanthosaurus. Really cool dinosaur. Again, I'll put all my links in the description so you can see where I got the information from and judge me if I got it wrong. And moving on to our next one, we only have 3 today, but we have 3 great ones. And both of these dinosaurs, these next ones, start with Alberta, or Alberto. So we have the Albertaceratops, named aptly after where it was found in Alberta. Its name means Alberta horned face. Like ceratops, ceratopsians are horn face, Alberta is where it was found. A bunch of links for this one as well. There's lots of stuff online, but again, not a totally well-known ceratopsian by any means. So it lived in the middle Cambrian age in the Upper Cretaceous, so about 77 million years ago. Acrocanthosaurus lived 110 million. This is 33 million years later. I can't even fathom, 2 years nowadays. 33 million years after. There's been continents have shifted, mountains have changed, forests have burned. This dinosaur is first taking its steps. Again, the age of dinosaurs was long and amazing. It was named by Michael J. Ryan in 2007, but it was originally found in the Old Man Formation in Alberta in 2001. Alberta is a great place for finding dinosaur fossils. There are all kinds of fossils out there, and there's so many cool formations to find them in. I would love to go one day and just enjoy and explore and dig, but we'll see what happens with that. Now, that being said, it's known only, and there's a bit of a caveat to this, only from a well-preserved skull. Originally, there were also bones found in Montana that we thought were also Albertosaurus, but it's probably not. It's probably Medusaceratops. Medusaceratops looks a bit like Albertaceratops, but is not by any means the same dinosaur. Again, Montana, Alberta aren't really that far apart, but all we have, quote unquote, the single thing is just the skull, which is great. You can tell a lot about dinosaurs by the skull. You can base it off of other dinosaurs and how they interact. So hopefully we know what we're talking about with this one. Now, Albertaceratops was 19 feet or 5 to 6 meters in length. 5 to 8 meters in length. And weighed approximately 3.5 tons. Now, I think I have a picture of a modern-day person next to an Albertaceratops. It looks kind of chunky. Again, we don't know what the body looked like, so we can't really tell for sure how thick this thing was. Not seeing ribs makes it really difficult to tell what it looked like. You can kind of guess from the head, but even without a neck, you don't know how thick the neck was. It just causes some issues. Now, unlike Triceratops, and this is the really cool thing, and we should have some paleo art of this as well. Unlike Triceratops, it didn't have like a pronounced nasal horn. It had instead kind of like a bony protrusion. If you've ever seen Pachyrhinosaurus, which we will talk about eventually, Pachyrhinosaurus had like this big kind of like nasal ridge that wasn't so much a spike, but more like just like a flat, kind of bumpy spot at the end of its nose. And that is what Albertosaurus had. Now, it also had 2 brow horns. So brow horns come from the brows, like most ceratopsians. And then also had kind of backwards-facing horns that came on the backhand of the frill. All ceratopsians, I should say most ceratopsians, I think, have frills. And this one would have had 2 little horns at the top that kind of curved backwards. Don't know what it served, don't know why, but it kind of just grew that way. Now that's, again, not a ton to talk about for this one, unfortunately. There's probably tons more information, but I just went through what I kind of saw and thought was good to talk about. There's a lot of conjecture. Again, only having the skull makes it really difficult to tell what else it could be. You know, this thing could have been, like, I love the theories where, like, you know, it could have had a tiny body or a huge body, or, again, we're kind of just basing it off of what its skull looks like and comparing that to, like, Triceratops and other things like that. And our last one is probably, if you asked me as a kid what my favorite dinosaur was, I would have said Albertosaurus. Now, Albertosaurus, not Albertasaurus, Albertosaurus, is named after Alberta. It means Alberta lizard. And this thing is a tyrannosaurid through and through. It's got the nasal, like the flared nasals. It's got like that, like the ridges on its eyes. It looks amazing. And it is one of my favorites. Nowadays, I'm more cultured. I like Spinosaurus. But as a child, I would have said Albertosaurus is number 1. So it lived in the Cretaceous period, approximately 73 to 69.6 million years ago. So it might have lived at the same time as Albertaceratops, but probably not. That's still 6 million years between when Albertaceratops was roaming the Earth and when Albertosaurus was roaming the Earth. Probably wasn't roaming the Earth at the same time as each other, but hey, kind of cool anyways. It was discovered in 1884 by Joseph Burr Tyrrell. It was the first meat-eating dinosaur ever to be discovered in Canada, which is really cool. Originally, I think they thought it was actually part of the group of the Megasaurs. Megasaurus is kind of like a blanket term for most meat-eating dinosaurs at the time. It wasn't until the T-Rex was discovered that Albertosaurus was actually recognized as its own species. So if T-Rex never was discovered, we might not have even put Albertosaurus in its own category. It would have just been another bipedal carnivore, which kind of sucks, but I'm happy we actually figured it out and we know it's an actual dinosaur. So it was found in exposures of the Horseshoe Canyon Formation in south-central Alberta, and they actually have a crazy range. So they've been found as north as Edmonton, and all the way down to Drumheller. So that's quite a bit distance from Calgary to Drumheller to Edmonton. Long range. There are lots of other bones, teeth, and footprints discovered all around Alberta and even into Montana, but it's not 100% sure if it is Albertosaurus, because at the time there was a lot of other theropods being meat-eating bipedal dinosaurs that were large, and the fact of the matter is it's really tough to tell, sometimes even like a million years apart in bone beds because of how certain things are preserved. It makes it difficult. It can kind of baffle people. I'm not a paleontologist by any means, so I'm kind of just going off what I've heard. I could be wrong, but that's kind of how it seems. Now, it's in the T-Rex family, as I said. It's a Tyrannosaurid. So T-Rex, probably everyone's favorite dinosaur at one point in time. This guy, part of the family. Second cousin, twice removed. He's always coming to the cookouts. Really cool dinosaur in that respect. It was 30 feet, so that's 9 meters in length, and weighing up to 3 tons or more. Now, the big thing with weighing dinosaurs, when you don't have the full picture, it's really hard to tell how much it could actually weigh. The big issue is bones don't show muscle. They don't show any kind of like extra calcium, because calcium, I don't believe calcium is preserved in fossils. So it's really difficult to tell how muscly or fat or, even dense these dinosaurs could be, because the bones only tell so much. So most of the weights are approximate. We're never entirely sure unless we have the full picture and could probably map it, but I don't think that'll ever happen. Now, there are 2 skin samples, which is really cool. So 2 skin samples of Albertosaurus have been preserved, and both show scales rather than the proto-feathers that some T-Rexes would have. So the nice thing about this is it shows strictly scale. Again, I'm big on feathered dinosaurs. We know they had to have existed. We know certain dinosaurs actually did have feathers, and Tyrannosaurus may have had feathers as well. But Albertosaurus did not, at least not on the skin samples we found. So I think the skin samples are taken from approximately a rib and then a kind of undefined skin sample. So we don't exactly know where they were, but where they were, there was no feathers, which is really cool. Unlike other Tyrannosaurids, so you look at Dysplatosaurus, Tyrannosaurus, big, mean dinosaurs. They had this method of very powerful jaws. So when you bite into something, if you're strong enough, you just crunch through the bone. And you just take the bone, you take the meat, and you just eat it all as one. But Albertosaurus wasn't so much dealt for that. Its jaws were not as broad, nor was it the style of bone-crushing teeth like its cousins. So it was thought that it probably grabbed and ripped away kind of thing. Kind of like a Komodo dragon, where Komodo dragons grab and bite and grab and bite. It's not 100% again confirmed because I wasn't there, but that's the thought that, again, bigger Tyrannosaurids would have just kind of eaten it all like a hyena. They wouldn't care. And then these are more like lions, where they would bite and then tear, but not getting that bone because you can't digest it well anyways, and your teeth can't break it up. Now, that's pretty much all I have for these 3 dinosaurs. So today we talked about Acrocanthosaurus, Albertaceratops, and Albertosaurus. 3 really cool dinosaurs. They're all in order alphabetically as well. So next week, when I talk about dinosaurs, hopefully I'll be here next week, we're going to talk about, actually it's on this page too. We're going to talk about a lot of ceratopsians. So we have Anchiceratops, Ankylosaurus, which is a classic Ankylosaurus, the #1 club tail, and then a Rhinoceratops. So I'm going to learn about all these because I'm not 100% sure. I know Ankylosaurus, but the other 2 are a little bit of mystery to me. Both ceratopsians, so if you'd like horn-faced dinosaurs, tune in next week for it. With that, though, my name is Eldin Atkin. Thank you for joining me on the Dino show. I love being here. I love talking about dinosaurs. Again, I'm not an expert. I just like talking about it, so I hope you enjoy, and I will see you next week. Have a great day, and goodbye.